morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Monday, the 23rd of March, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. President Bongbong Marcos used his latest vlog to detail the ongoing government efforts to mitigate the global oil shock. According to the president, relief measures such as reduced railway fares and direct fuel subsidies remain a top priority to protect the livelihoods of Filipino drivers, farmers, and fishermen. As Iran continues to restrict passage through the Strait of Hormuz due to security concerns, the international community is pushing for de-escalation. Even Pope Leo XIV joined these efforts in his latest address, urging an end to the Middle East crisis. And starting March 25th, the House Justice Panel will formally open the hearing proper on the consolidated impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte. However, despite receiving an official summons, the Vice President has yet to confirm her attendance. Now, welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. And now first on the agenda. In his latest vlog, President Bongbong Marcos assured the public that the government is actively working to help Filipinos amid the ongoing oil crisis. Here's that report.
The government continues to take action to support Filipinos amid the ongoing oil crisis. This was emphasized by President Bongbong Marcos in his latest vlog.
Gusto kong ulitin sa inyo, hindi kayo maiiwanan, hindi kayo pababayaan ng pamahalaan.
He outlined several government initiatives, including fare discounts on trains.
Sa LRT2 at MRT3 naman ay may 50% na diskwento simula March 23. Yung blue beep cards na may 50% discount. Habang ang white beep card ay patuloy ang 50% discount para sa mga PWD, senior at estudyante.
As well as the distribution of cash assistance and fuel subsidies for drivers, farmers, and fishermen.
Fuel subsidies din ang nag-aabang para sa mga magsasaka at mangingisda. Ongoing na talaga yung mga programang yan. Pero nagpatagdag pa tayo ng 50 million sa mga regional field offices.
The government is also in talks with other countries to secure a stable oil supply.
Tungkol naman sa supply ng langis, nakikipag-usap na po tayo sa mga bansa na ating mga trade partner gaya ng India. Ngunit sinasama na natin lahat ng mga iba at linalapitan ang China, Japan, Thailand, Brunei, South Korea patungkol sa mga posibleng supply arrangement.
Marcos added that authorities are coordinating with manufacturers to help keep the prices of basic goods stable. The president urged Filipinos to help by conserving resources, supporting one another, and sharing accurate information during the crisis.
Ngayon ang panahon para magtulungan. Ngayon ang panahon para maipakita natin sa buong mundo ang katangian ng bayanihan na nasa puso ng bawat Pilipino.
Well, another big fuel price hike may be on the horizon this week. Industry sources say diesel prices could go up by 13 to 14 pesos and 50 centavos per liter, while gasoline may increase by 7 to 7 pesos and 50 cents. If this pushes through, diesel prices may breach the 130 peso per liter mark. Transport groups warn many drivers are already struggling, with some even forced to borrow money just to get by, while others are skipping meals despite long hours on the road.
Umaasa kami sa Bombay, mangungutang ng 5-6 doon. Buti pa si Bombay, madaling kausap. Pinagbibigyan kami kahit na hindi makabayad ngayon sa susunod na araw. Pwede sa kanya kasi naiintindihan niya kami. Pero yung gobyerno natin, hindi tayo maintindihan. Doon sa halagang pisong taas pamasahe, binito pa niya. Napaka-inutil ng gobyerno natin. Wala siyang malasakit sa mga transport sector niya. Banana queue, yun na lang, at saka tubig. Kung manghihina kami, kawawa yung pamilya namin. Pero yung gobyerno, ewan ko kung anong iniisip niya. Walang iniisip yung gobyerno na maganda para sa mamamayan niya.
Now, on the international front, Iran says it will maintain navigation restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz until perceived threats to the country are removed. Ali Mohammadi, Iran's consul general in Shanghai, accused the United States and Israel of undermining past talks with military aggression, saying their goal was to force Iran to surrender. Meantime, Israel's military said it has intercepted over 90% of missiles since the start of the war. Spokesperson Nadav Shoshani warned that Iran's missile program poses a broader threat beyond Israel, with missiles capable of reaching large parts of Asia, Europe, and even Africa, making the conflict a global concern.
All of the casualties and injured people in this war have been civilians. This is what the Iranian regime considers success. We learned the range of the ballistic missile can cover entire Europe. This threat is not a threat only in Israel. It's a threat on large parts of Asia, all of Europe, and large parts of Africa.
Meanwhile, Pope Leo XIV renewed his call for an end to hostilities in the Middle East, urging prayers and dialogue to restore peace. He described the suffering of civilians as a grave injustice that affects all of humanity.
Rinnovo con forza l'appello a perseverare nella preghiera affinché cessino le ostilità e si aprano finalmente cammini di pace fondati sul dialogo sincero e sul rispetto della dignità di ogni persona umana.
Now, back here at home, the House Committee on Justice is set to begin hearings on the impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte this week, as questions continue to swirl over whether she will personally attend the proceedings. Here's the report.
After being declared sufficient in grounds, the two impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte will now move forward. With hearings set to begin on Wednesday, March 25. The Vice President's camp has confirmed receiving the invitation to attend, but her legal counsel attorney Michael Poa says it remains unclear whether she will show up. He stressed that there is no requirement for the Vice President to personally attend a hearing, adding that any decision will depend on her rights and the advice of her legal team. Meanwhile, House Justice Committee Chair Jervil Luistro earlier said it is within the Vice President's prerogative whether to appear or not. But for lawyer Dino De Leon, who represented one of the impeachment complaints, the Vice President should face the proceedings and answer the allegations against her.
Duty-bound siya, constitutional process to eh. Kailangan galangin ni Sara Duterte ang mga institusyon, including the House of Representatives, including eventually the Senate, and kailangan niyang sagutin sa saligang batas. At sabi sa saligang batas, accountability ito, kailangan mag-explain siya.
De Leon, however, doubts that Duterte will attend. And even if she does, he believes she may avoid directly answering questions.
Palagay ko hindi niya sasagutin yung mga tanong. She will again throw an attitude out there and claim that this is all political.
Duterte has earlier denied the allegations, arguing that the complaints lack ultimate facts, a claim that De Leon strongly disputes, insisting there is sufficient basis for accountability.
Ito po ang mastery kasi ng Duterte camp, no? Yung tinatawag nating dilituhin tayo, yung tinatawag nating diversion, muddling of the issues. Ang alegasyon ay siya ay nagwaldas at nagnakaw sa confidential funds. Yun ang kailangan niyang sagutin. Kaso ayaw niyang sagutin, ginagawa na naman ng mga teknikalidad. The attitude is against accountability, which is the very soul of the Constitution.
Meanwhile, a civil society group says it plans to set up a people court if the impeachment process reaches the Senate, composed of priests, members of the academe, and former judges, to monitor the proceedings and present evidence to the public.
Habang nagsasagawa ng pagdinig doon sa loob ng Senado, magtatayo kami ng People's Court doon, maski na outside the gate eh. Karapatan natin yun eh. Kung walang resoluteness yung Senado, at least may mga maglalahad pa rin ng mga ebidensya at maglalahad ng mga katotohanan.
Now, don't go away. We will be back with more stories after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. House Justice Committee Chair Jervil Luistro has denied allegations of vote buying in the impeachment process against Vice President Sara Duterte. Luistro said no bribery or undue influence affected the votes of committee members and stressed that she has not encountered any attempt from House leadership to influence how she presides over the proceedings. She also clarified that the House Committee on Justice is not a trial court and will only conduct a preliminary investigation to determine whether there is probable cause to move forward with the impeachment process. Now, hearings are set to begin on March 25, even while Congress is in recess. And at this point, we are now joined by Professor Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the USC Political Science Department. Good morning to you, Professor, and thank you for being here on Morning Matters.
Hi, good morning, Pauline. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Prof, the House Justice Committee has now found sufficient grounds to proceed to the fourth step of the impeachment process, which is already the hearing proper, no? So first things first, what are your expectations? And help us understand, ano po ba yung mangyayari dito sa hearing proper? How high is the threshold?
Well, I think this is in connection with the previous hearings regarding whether the complaints had satisfied the standards with regard to the substance. So I think at this point, the House Committee on Justice would like to find out if there's going to be a probable cause or sufficient ground to continue with the with the next stage of the impeachment process, which is if this is going to be approved, if this is going to be approved by the Committee on Justice, it will be endorsed for approval at the plenary level.
Well, when we say probable cause, Prof, what does that entail? Ano? Because I believe at this stage, evidence and key witnesses will be presented already. So is hard evidence required in the hearing proper, or it's more of establishing a credible narrative?
Yeah, it's more of the second one. It's supposed to, the evidence that will be presented against the Vice President should be able to establish that it's worthy of the taxpayers' money to proceed with the impeachment process. O hindi naman kinakailangan the evidence will be held to a very high standard. What is needed is that there is sufficient evidence to establish or to convince everyone that they should proceed with the trial.
Well, taking a look at the allegations, Professor, there's the misuse of confidential funds, unexplained wealth, SALN violations. For you, what kind of evidence do you think both parties need to present at this stage, in order to either prove the allegations or to also counter them on the part of the defense?
Well, with regard to the allegations about corruption-related, those corruption-related allegations, I suppose the best evidence there are documentary evidence aside from testimonies of witnesses, because we know that whenever money exchanges hands, there are always paper trails. There are documents that are needed in order to facilitate the movement of money. So say, for example, the allegations about the misuse of funds. There has to be documentary evidence like receipts, bank documents that will prove that certain amounts had moved from one bank account to another. And I think this is the reason why our certain corrupt officials would rather go for transactions which have no documentary evidence or paper trail. Oo nga, kaya nga ang uso ngayon yung mali-maleta na puno-puno ng cash na ililipat from one place to another.
So kakailanganin talaga ng documentary evidence, Professor, in order for this to be quite credible. But what do you make of this request also of Representative Shell Diokno seeking a subpoena and protective custody for Ramil Madriaga? He is the alleged bagman of VP Sara Duterte. Gaano po ba ka-crucial para sa Committee on Justice to actually secure the custody of Ramil Madriaga at this stage?
Well, I think it's very important because, as I said, I think most of the evidence that will be presented, against the vice president, have something to do with the paper trail, and what's lacking there is a witness who personally was involved in those, in any anomalous transactions involving the president. And so far, the only witness who's very willing to give a testimony, who's available, is Mr. Madriaga. I think no one, among those involved, no one is brave enough to do what Mr. Madriaga would like to do.
And what do you think is the implication, Professor? No, if the committee doesn't secure the custody of Madriaga, is he at risk of being influenced by other parties?
Well, there are reports that Mr. Madriaga is being visited by certain personalities. I suppose the reason behind those visits is to influence the testimony of Mr. Madriaga. Because like I said, his testimony is very crucial in the case against the vice president. So if something, in the event that before he gives his testimony, and then he suddenly changes his mind, because I think he's known for that, parang he has already flip-flopped for quite for a number of times. So it's very important for the prosecution to secure the testimony of Mr. Madriaga, because it's still possible that someone else is going to visit him and try to change his mind.
Well, amid this impeachment process, Professor, we're also hearing vote-buying allegations. Representative Toby Tiangco says that it's highly possible that lawmakers could be bribed with funding allocations, pati yung mga FLR na yan, yung mga for later release to support the impeachment. But this is something that Congressman Jude Asidre has already categorically denied. But for the public, how much weight should we put on the political calculations of these congressmen who are deciding on the impeachment complaints, the process against the vice president, knowing that VP Sara has already declared her bid to run for president in 2028?
Well, I think, you're right. There are so many factors that our congressmen who will be part of the decision making in the impeachment process. There are so many factors that they will have to put into their political calculations. One is the fact that just recently the vice president had declared her intention to run as president in 2008. And second, of course, the budgetary allocations. Well, let's not be naive, Even though the impeachment process is about accountability, holding accountable our impeachable officials, there's of course an incentive to convince our lawmakers to vote on one side, and the incentive of course is found in the national budget. That was revealed last year by Congressman Toby Tiangco. Sinabi niya na na a certain portion of the 2025 budget, kaya ganun kalaki, was allocated for the impeachment of the vice president. So it's possible that there's going to be a repeat of what Congressman Tiangco said last year. Kaya nga lang, I suppose it's more subtle, it's more discreet this year, and that's why the vice president believes that there's a vote buying.
Well, when it comes to the hearing proper, Professor, si Chairperson Congresswoman Luis Ro characterized it as somewhat a mini trial. Pero on the part of the defense, sabi po ni Attorney Michael Poa, hindi naman daw sila makaka-cross-examine. They won't be able to, it's only the committee members who will be able to do so. So for them, there's nothing to gain by attending the hearings, by being there. Ano po magiging implications noon, Professor, if the lawyers of VP Sara does not attend, and even Vice President Sara herself?
Well, we're not exactly sure with the what's in the internal rules of the House Committee on Justice. But if ever, that concern of Attorney Poa is going to happen, or it's not really part of the internal rules that the Vice President can cross-examine the witnesses, well, she might raise it as an issue. Perhaps if not, before the public, she might bring that issue to the Supreme Court like what she did the last time, baka sabihin niya it's a deprivation of her right to due process. So, yun ang yun ang ating and it's the first time that we're going to experience this. There is no precedent with regard to this one, whether or not the accused is allowed to cross-examine the witness at the house, at the level of the House Committee on Justice. So, pero on the part of the Vice President as the accused, it will add more reason for her to become more cynical and pessimistic of the process. From the very beginning, sinasabi na nga niya, this is all part of the political persecution against her and her family. So anything that will not be favorable on her side will be interpreted as such.
Yes, because as early as now, her camp is already raising concerns on double standards, di ba, Prof? Pati na rin yung lack of ultimate facts. So they could also probably raise questions on the rules and all. But I think Chairperson Luistro made it clear naman na they will be able to cross-examine if they do it through the committee members. So it's quite interesting to see how that will unfold actually sa hearings. Pero para sa'yo, Prof, ano po ba dapat ang gawin dito ni Vice President Sara Duterte? Would it be more beneficial for her to appear and to address once and for all these allegations, or it's better to just take this up with the Senate when it becomes a full-blown trial?
Well, I think even though her perception is that this is going to be a lopsided fight, meaning to say it's going to be in favor of the allies of the administration, and that she believes that the administration allies are going to manipulate the impeachment process. I think she still has to be there and to defend herself. It's important because from what I heard, they're going to present receipts, bank documents that will prove that she's guilty of corruption, the allegation regarding corruption. Kasi parang may mga yung joint account nila ng kanyang ama, as presented in the media, sabi nila, yung bank account na yun, joint bank account, contains billions of pesos of money coming from, illegal groups that are into illegal activities. So yun, dapat ipagtanggol yung sarili sa lahat ng pagkakataon.
And finally, Professor, for the public following these proceedings, what should we be paying closest attention to? What should we watch out for as this historic process unfolds?
Well, actually, there is a more pressing problem that our country is facing, and that's the economic crisis brought about by the Middle East conflict. But nevertheless, that's not a reason for us to set aside this important issue regarding our desire to hold accountable our impeachable officials. Regardless of who the impeachable official is, I think we should all be interested and we should monitor, and we should, if we think that the impeachment process is not becoming objective, or is not after justice and accountability, I think as citizens of this country, it's our right to exercise our, freedom to express, to speak about, what's wrong with the impeachment process or the direction that it's already taking. So kung sa tingin natin highly partisan, naliligaw na, hindi na truth ang habol, hindi na rin accountability, then let's speak out our opinion and exert pressure on our lawmakers.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to share your insights with us this morning. That was Professor Dennis Coronacion, Chairman of the UST Political Science Department. Do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. As we know, President Bongbong Marcos has assured the distribution of aid for farmers and fisherfolk amid the continuing rise in fuel prices. In his latest vlog, Marcos announced an additional 50 million pesos allocation for regional field offices. The fund is intended to support 9,570 farmers operating machinery. The president also said the government is securing fertilizer supplies to help farmers amid global price pressures. At this point, let's talk to Pamalakaya Chairperson Fernando Hicap. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, ganda umaga, Pauline, sa inyong mga taga-subaybay.
Alright, sir. So, 3 linggo na po mula nang tumaas ang presyo ng krudo dahil sa giyera sa gitnang silangan sa Middle East. Kamusta na po ba ang araw-araw na sitwasyon ng ating mangingisda?
Yes, so nga before pa naman, no, itong gera sa, sa Middle East, itong walang katuturan, no? Tagirang inilulunsad ng Israel at saka ng EU. Ang mga isda ay talagang hirap na no, yung buhay. Actually, sa gasolina nga, ay 80% ng total production namin ay pupunta lang sa gasolina. Kaya kung itong nadoble na, no, ito ngayon, dahil nga dito sa gera ni Trump at ng Israel, nadoble na yung presyo, mas lalong doble yung hirap, no, na nararanasan ng mga mangisda. Kasi ang problema dito namin, Pauline, hindi lang yung patuloy na pagtaas ng gasolina, no? Ang problema namin, sinasamantala pa ng ilang mga traders yung pagtaas ng gasolina para parating yung bili sa amin. Kaya doble, mataas yung gastos namin, pinapat pa kami ng mga pagsamantalang traders.
Pero sir, magkano po ba ang karaniwang gastos ng isang mangingisda sa bawat paglalayag at magkano na lamang po ang naiuwi nila ngayon?
Ang gastos dati depende kasi yun sa lugar, no, yung pangisda, yung pangisdaan, no. Kung halimbawa, kung dito sa Manila Bay, dati ang gastos namin diyan 2 hanggang 3 litro laot sa isang gabi. Nung wala pa po yung dredging and reclamation, no? Kasi nandiyan lang kami, pakalabas diyan sa may mga taungan at mga baklad ay nandun na ng isda, no? Kami noon. Pero ngayon, dahil ni-reclaim at drainage, yung mga pangisda namin dyan, yung 4 reps dyan sa Nicolas Shoal, nandun na kami nangingisda sa may bahagi ng Zambales saka Mindoro. Kaya yung gastos namin 3 litro, umaabot na ngayong mga 20 hanggang 30 litros yung ginagastos namin. Kaya napakabigat na nun, Pauline.
So sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon po, sir, magkano na lamang po ang natitira o kinikita ng isang mangingisda?
Sabi, merong mga report sa amin na kinita lang nila nung kahapon, no? Sabi sa akin, 50 pesos daw yung parte niya. Kung yung isa naman, meron daw 150. Ganun, lumalaro.
Nako, 150
Yung
na
kita
lamang
nila
po.
ngayon.
Parang hindi naman na po talaga sapat iyon, sir, ano? Pero sa kabila ng mataas na presyo ng krudo, may mga ulat din daw po, sir, na may ilang gasolinahan na tumatangging magbenta ng diesel kung ilalagay kasi sa container,
Yes.
ano? Problema din po ba yan ng ating mga mangingisda?
Tama po yun. Dito sa yan, mayroon pong gano'n, no? Yung mga nasa probinsya, report sa amin, lalong-lalo na yung mga pambot na nagpapasahero, yung galing halimbawa sa mainland papunta sa mga isla, kailangan mo dalhin yung pambot mo bago ka bentahan. Tapos may limit, no? Yung mga mangingisda ngayon, pwede pa namang gamitin yung container at galon, pero dala mo yung rehistro ng bangka mo. Kapag hindi mo dala yung rehistro ng bangka mo, tapos may limit na 10 litro.
Nako. So ano po ang inyong siguro proposal, sir, ano, para naman makakuha pa rin ng gasolina ang ating mga mangingisda?
Di ba kataliwas ito po doon sa payag ni Secretary Garain ng DOA. Sabi niya, wala naman tayo, huwag tayong mag-alala, huwag tayong magpanik dahil wala namang crisis langis. Bakit ganito yung nangyayari? Yung isang malaking problema dito, kapag bawas, no? Yung nabibili mo, ang ibig sabihin lang naman, maliit rin yung pangisdaan mo at pati yung panahon mo. Kaya di hamak na ano talaga yan, no? Malaking pagbaba ng produksyon natin at baling sumirit yung presyo ng isda sa merkado, no? Sa panawagan natin yung kagyat bagamat sabi natin maliit, yung sinasabi nilang 3,000 na fuel subsidy, and immediately dapat ibigay na yon, nasaan na yon? Huwag nilang gamitin na yan na dahilan, no? Tapos kakarampot pa yon. Hanggang ngayon, 3 linggo na itong gera. Wala pa nung February 20 hanggang ngayon, no? Wala pa tayong natatanggap na suporta galing sa gobyerno. Pero yung immediate na panawagan natin, hindi lang yung fuel subsidy, yung production subsidy. O sa mga mangingisda yan, meron kaming panukalang batas na 15,000 sa ngayon dahil na-double na yung gastos natin, dapat double na rin, mga 30,000. Production subsidy. Kung sa magsasakayan, 50,000 yung bawat hektarya, madodoble na rin yun. Kahit pa mga 100,000 yung kailangan para patiyak natin na merong produkto, no, na makakain yung mga mayang Pilipino ng palay at ng bigas at saka ng isda. At ganoon din, yung talaga, yung immediate na lahat tayo magkikinabang, yung suspension ng koleksyon ng value-added tax sa kanyang isa stock. Yung lahat, no? Na buwis na binabayaran natin dito sa produktong petrolyo. At yung pangmatagalan, kasi mawawala rin yan Ang kailangan talaga, deregulated. Basura na yung deregulation law, no? Dapat nasa control at management ng gobyerno yung napakahalaga na industriya, no? Kasi ito yung tugon ng ekonomiya natin, Kaya nga nararamdaman natin yun. Siyempre, yung sa mga sambayan ng mamamayan, no, ng daigdig ang panawagan natin ay mapahinto itong walang batayan at pangsariling interes lamang nagirang inilulunsad ni Netanyahu at saka ni Trump.
Pero sir, ano po ang reaksyon nyo dun sa sinabi ng Pangulo na magkakaroon naman ng karagdagang alokasyon para sa mga magsasaka, pati na rin sa mga mangingisda, nasa 50 million pesos para sa mga regional field offices. Pero nabanggit nyo nga kanina, ang 3,000, hindi po malayong maaabot niyan.
Oo, kakarampot lang yun, Pauline, no? At maliban sa kakarampot na wala pa, no? Hindi na bagal to Kasi walang kakayanan, no? Ang administrasyon ni Bongbong Marcos para tugunan directly yung immediately na epekto nito sa mga mayang Pilipino, lalong-lalo na sa mga produktibong sektor tulad ng pagsasaka at mga mangingisda. Ganun din, no? Yung transport sector, yung piso na nga lang na dagdag, inano nyo pa, no? Di nyo pa pinatupad. Malinaw, no, na hindi talaga ito, hindi alam, actually, walang alam si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos kung paano i-resolve yung matinding epekto nitong krisis sa ekonomiya ng ating bansa.
Sir, may mga issue rin daw po na limitado lamang ang mabibigyan ng subsidiya tulad ng mga nakarehistrong boat owners. Ang tanong din dyan, paano naman yung mga mangingisda na hindi nakarehistro pero umaasa dito sa kabuhayan na ito?
Yun nga, Pauline, actually, kahit hindi pa natin isama yung hindi nakarehistro, yung rehistrado pa lang, no? Based doon sa PSA, registered municipal fishing boat, no? Sabi nila more than 300,000. Pero yung allocation sa mga mangingisda lang ay 14,947 yung mabibigyan. Ganun lang kaliit, Pauline, no? Malinaw talaga na ito ay banded, maliban sa banded, tapos hindi talaga seryoso ang gobyerno ni Bongbong Marcos para tugunan, no? Yung malalang epekto sa mga mangingisda.
Sir, nararamdaman na rin po ba ang epekto sa presyo ng isda sa merkado? Paano na po ito nakaka-apekto sa mga consumer?
Yes, may monitor ako. Dati-rati, yung galunggong, mga 300 ngayon, lumalagpas na. Pero ayon sa report din sa amin, bumababa naman yung bili, no? Doon sa ating mga mangingisda, yung farm gate. Kasi nananatili naman yung bili nila. Halimbawa yung galunggong, dito sa bahagi ng Zambales, nasa 120 to 130 yung kilo. Doon sa Palawan, meron pang 70 to 80 pesos per kilo. Kaya ito yung problema namin Pauline, kasi yung mga mapagsamantalang traders, ginagamit pang dahilan para baratin yung mga mangingisda, yung pagtaas ng gastos nila sa tracking.
At sir, gaano po ba kahalaga o critical para sa inyong hanay yung pag-alis nga doon sa excise tax, pati na rin ang value-added tax sa fuel?
Malino, no? Inaasahan natin, nakagyat na pag naalis mo yun, bababa yung presyo natin, di ba? Nang halos mga 16 to 18 pesos yan Ngayon, yung value-added tax natin, dahil mahigit 100 na yan, dinasa 12 pesos na yun, mahigit. Yung excise tax natin, automatic 10 pesos per liter yun sa gasolina. Kaya pag sinama mo yun, ganun kalaki yung magiging pakinabang natin directly, no? Doon sa pagbaba ng presyo. Dapat maramdaman yun, no? Dapat yun sa pagbaba ng presyo ng gasolina sa bawat pagbili mo, no? Hindi dapat samantalahin ng mga kartel sa langis itong pag-alis ng value-added tax sa excise tax para samantalahin nila na sila magkinabang.
So ang panawagan po ng pamalakaya ngayon ay tanggalin na nga ang excise tax, ang value-added tax sa presyo sa krudo, no sir, pati na rin ang pagbigay na ng subsidiya na kahit hindi sapat itong 3,000 pesos ay ibigay na sa ating mga mangingisda kasi 3 linggo na rin kayong naghihirap pero may panawagan din daw po ang pamalakaya sir na pagtaas ng sahod sa 1,200 pesos kada araw lalo na sa gitna ng krisis na ito.
Yun po yung mga manggagawang mangingisda. Sinusuportahan namin yung panawagan ng Kilusang Mayo 1 na isa batas na yung national minimum wage. Yung nakabubuhay na sahod, 1,200 monthly. At bahagi rin yung mga mangingisda doon sa magkikinabang dyan, lalong-lalo na yung mga manggagawang mangingisda sa mga palaisdaan at saka doon sa mga commercial fishing vessel.
Pero sir, sa gitna ng patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng krudo, kung magtuloy-tuloy pa rin po ito, ano po yung nakikita ninyong magiging pangmatagalang epekto nito sa seguridad ng pagkain sa Pilipinas?
Ako, lagi ako kinakabahan. Minsan, dinadalam na ako bawat pagtulog. Paano na kaya mangyayari sa mga mangingisda? Ngayon na, ay hirap na sila doon sa pagkain nila sa araw-araw. At mayroon na nga lang naglulugaw, paano pa kaya kung wala na silang kita, tuloy-tuloy yung pagtaas ng pagkain sa ating bayan. Ito yung nakakatakot doon, no? Magkaroon talaga ng mga anti-social na activity yung ating mga kababayan para i-resolve yung epekto ng krisis sa kanilang pamilya at tayo yung mag-away, no? Kaya ito yung panawagan natin sa ating mga kababayan. Sa atin, kailangan tayong magkaisa, lalong-lalo na sa ngayon, no? Itong gira, nilulunsad na Trump at saka ni Netanyahu, na epekto sa atin. Kailangan natin mag-organisa at dapat ay makipagdialogo at pumilos tayo sa gobyerno, lalong-lalo na kay Presidente Bongbong Marcos na kagyat, nang magkaroon ng komprehensibong plano paano tutunan yung kagutuman.
Sir, kayo po ba ay nakikidayalogo na sa BFAR o sa Agriculture Department?
Actually, meron na kaming mga ganun, Nag-dialogue na kami sa BFAR. Immediate na pinag-usapan namin yung fuel subsidy, paano mabibigyan lahat ng mga registered primary, tapos paano natin aabutin pa yung mga hindi pa rehistradong.
At sa kabila nitong challenge para sa inyo po sir, may balak po ba na magsagawa ng strike o demonstration ang pamalakaya?
Yes, tuloy-tuloy naman, yung aming mga pagkilos maliban doon sa direktang pagkikilaok, doon sa welga ng mga transport sector nitong nakaraang araw, at meron din kami mga pluvial and coastal protest para i-rehistro yung kagyat na panawagan na ibasura o i-suspend yung value-added tax at saka yung excise tax o yung buwis sa langis at ganoon din yung pagpapasura ng oil deregulation law at panawagan at kundinahin itong ginagawang gera ni Trump at Netanyahu na dapat ay mapatigil na.
Sir, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. That was Pamalakaya Chairperson Fernando Hicap. Now, don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Transport Group Manibela is set to hold a press conference this morning ahead of its planned transport strike. And for more details, we go live to our mobile journalist Arles De Los Santos. Arles, what can we expect from this press conference? Arles, sorry, let's unmute so we can hear your report. Go ahead, Arles.
Pauline, nandito nga tayo ngayon sa Maynila kung saan ilang minuto na lamang ay inaasahan natin na magsisimula na yung press conference ng Transport Group na Manibela kung saan nga inaasahan natin na i-anunsyo nila ang petsa para sa kanilang nakatakdang transport strike. No? Bunsod pa rin yan ang patuloy na pagsirit ng presyo ng produktong petrolyo sa merkado. Kasama sa kanilang mga panawagan yung pagbuwaga sa train law, sa old regulation law, pagtanggal ng bata at yung excise tax nga sa langis. No? Gayon din, ang kagyat ng pagbibigay ng ayuda para sa kanila, yung fuel subsidy nga na tinatawag. Kung saan, kung makikita ninyo dito sa aking likuran, bibigyan ko kayo ng mabilis na tour, no? Dahil in any minute, mag-start na. So ayan, kasama sa kanilang mga hawak na placard dito ay oil deregulation law, ibasura na, presyo ng langis, i-roll back, at marami pang placard na hawak-hawak sila dito kung saan nga ang ilan sa kanila ay hindi na rin muna bumiyahe para sa puntong ito, at least, at ipinapanawagan nga nila yung welga para nga sa kanilang kapakanan din, dahil sila talaga po din yung kasama sa mga pinaka-apektadong grupo dito sa patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo. At kabukod pa dyan, inaasahan din ngayon yung mga ngayong linggo, yung inaasahan nga na pagtaas pa ng presyo ng produktong petrolyo, though wala pa tayong information sa DOE dahil usually Monday yung press conference and then Tuesday ay ipapatupad ito, pero asahan natin kung matutupad nga ba yan dahil posibleng na daw umabot ng 120 to 132 pesos ang presyo ng diesel kada litro.
Arles, ilang drivers ba ang inaasahang sasali dito sa transport strike na ito?
Sa ngayon po din wala pa tayong confirmed na numero kung ilan nga bang mga driver yung makikita dito, pero dito sa mga present ngayon, kumigit kumulang 30 mga driver. Yung kasama lang, at least sa press conference, hindi pa ito yung bilang ng mga driver na makikita doon sa transport strike. Pero itong grupong Manibela, kaiba pa ito doon sa grupong Pitstone na nagsagawa rin ng tigil pasada noong nakaraang linggo na sinundan nga ng kanilang paglalakad patungo sa Medjola para mas ilakas at inapi ang kanilang panawagan na isipin ang kapakanan ng mga driver na ngayon daw ay nasa 200 to 300 pesos kung suswertehin pa yung kanilang na lamang na iuwi sa 12 to 18 hours sa pamamasada araw-araw.
Ako, Arles, baka may pwede tayong ma-interview dyan na jeepney driver, kung kamusta na ba yung araw-araw na kalbaryo nila?
Sige, ito interviewin na natin kunin si Kuya. Kuya, ano po ang inyong pangalan? Kuya, pwede po maka-interview. Mabilis na po. Ilan taon na po kayong driver at kumusta po yung inyong karanasan ngayon bilang patuloy po yung pagtaas ng petrol?
Tungkol sa karanasan namin dito, napakahirap na ho lang aming sitwasyon. Tungkol sa aming biyahe, halos araw-araw hindi kami kumikita. Napakaliit na ho ng chance namin kumita pa para patawid namin sa aming pamilya. Yun naman po.
Dati po ba magkano po yung kinikita ninyo?
Kumikita po kami ng mga 500 po araw-araw. Sa ngayon kumikita na lang kami halos 100 mahigit na lang dahil sa taas ng diesel. Dahil sa taas po talaga.
Ano po yung mga major diskarte o adjustment na ginagawa nyo dahil kakaunti na, syempre sa may pamilya?
Okay, ganito po. Ang adjustment po namin na humihingi na lang kami ng pasensya sa aming mga pasahero na kung medyo mabagal kami mamasada dahil kailangan ho namin magpuno dahil sa taas ng pamasahe. Dahil sa taas ng ng diesel. Kaya lang dapat po talaga ibaba yung diesel kagaya ng panawagan po namin.
Dati po, di ba, bago po tayo umabot sa ganitong price na 96, 86, parang nasa 55 pesos. Yung piston, yun po yung panawagan. Yun din po ba yung gusto nyong rollback?
Ay, rollback na lang po dapat ng langis. Rollback na lang po.
And then yung fuel subsidy po.
Subsidy.
Maraming
Kasi
salamat.
yung subsidy, pang ilang araw lang yan. Ang hinahanap namin yung pang araw, yung mahabang tulong sa aming mga driver.
Maraming salamat po, Kuya. Yan muna ang latest mula dito sa Maynila, Pulina. Balik sa inyo.
All right, well, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Well, meanwhile, the Philippine National Police is considering raising the recruitment quota for female personnel to 20%. PNP Chief General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. said the move aims to build a stronger pipeline of women officers ready for key leadership roles. As of February, women accounted for 52,223 of the 236,493 personnel in the PNP. Nartates is also pushing to make the 20% quota permanent, doubling the current 10%. And in sports, from 5-set thrillers in the UAAP to a breakout run on the global tennis stage, it was a weekend packed with statement wins for Filipino athletes. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho has this report.
It was a weekend of thrillers and statement wins in the UAAP Season 88 Women's Volleyball Tournament and a breakthrough run on the international tennis stage. Far Eastern University showed true grit, outlasting defending champion National University in a 5-set classic yesterday at the Smart Araneta Coliseum. Love Lopez led the charge with 19 points, along with 25 excellent receptions and 14 digs, as FEU pulled off a 25-23, 25-23, 20-25, 21-25, 22-20 victory. The win pushed FEU into a tie for second place with NU, both holding 63 records.
Sabi nga po ni Coach Knowles na habaan lang yung pasensya kahit na, alam mo yun, yung nag-error ka na, pero patuloy pa rin. Wala sa mukha namin yung sisisihin yung kasama kasi nga nag-error. Pero nandun yung, ibabawi yung kasama kasi nga nag-error. Yun lang po.
The University of the Philippines snapped a 4-game skid with a dominant straight sets win over University of the East 25-21, 25-15, 25-14. Nina Itang led the Fighting Maroons after posting 14 points, 10 attacks and 4 blocks. Last Saturday, the Lady Spikers fought back in 4 sets to defeat Adamson University 25-19, 17-25, 25-23, 25-23. Amy Provido delivered 18 points built on strong net defense, while Angel Canino sealed the win with 21 points. LaSalle now stands alone at the top with an 8-0 record.
Ipinaalala namin kanina nung first 3 sets. Yung blocking namin nawalang bigla. Sabaga parang na disorganized, hindi naka-establish yung blocking nila. So thankful ng fourth set gumana.
Earlier, University of Santo Tomas extended its win streak to 3 after taking down Ateneo de Manila University in 4 sets, 21-25, 25-11, 25-22, 25-12. Angge Poyos continued her MVP caliber form, finishing with 25 points to power the Tigresses. On the international stage, Filipino tennis star Alex Ayala is making waves at the Miami Open. The 18-year-old advanced to the round of 16 after a straight sets win over Poland's Magda Linette 6-3, 7-6. It marks Ayala's second win over Linette this year. Up next, Ayala faces world number 14 Carolina Muchova in the 4th round. Kapatid Denise Valdesancho, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.